32. We're live. Let's just go with it. That's what I like.
It's the only way.
Nick, welcome back. Missed our last episode. Yep. That was pretty gut-wrenching.
Yeah, that was a rough one to miss.
Yeah, and by rough you mean good. Yeah, that was
hard for me to miss. I mean,
episode 31, Rudolf Balazhinec. I think that's how you said it. And then James Sliz. That was a really good one. Just the state of Ukraine, but we'll get into that one towards the end. This is a recap. We're recapping episodes 23 through 31, and we'll just jump right into it.
Sure.
Sound good?
Yep.
All right. What stands out to you about episode 23, which was with Tyler Roggie?
Yeah, Tyler. I mean, Tyler should talk more. Like he's a. I think we kind of tease him that he doesn't have any emotions or whatever, but that is not true. Like he's a deep well.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed talking to him in a setting like having him on the podcast and getting him to open up and talk about his feelings and his thoughts on things. And of course, you and I already know that much about him, but he's got a lot of good stuff up there, and just getting him to open up and share was like really fun. And I'd love to have him back on. He's empathetic, and I thought the empathy showed a lot, and I thought that was really cool because, you know, often we'll talk about hot button issues and stuff that get you riled up and whatnot. But we talked about his kids and how he feels about his kids and how he's been working so hard for the last 10 years. And to hear so you see that, like you see Tyler's just like a go-getter, a hard worker. But then to talk about like how he felt that whole time was an interesting perspective, and that it wasn't always easy, and it was more than not being easy. It was super hard. And hearing like his thoughts and feelings on it, because often, I don't know if it's like a specific to men, but like I don't think Tyler was complaining about the whole time about it. You know what I mean? It's like you don't hear that side of the story a lot. So just to get him to open up and like hear that side of the 10 years of their story where they were like buckled down, like working hard to get their finances where they wanted it to be, and kind of like how that is on the inside for a man. Like, yeah, it was good. It was good to hear that. And I thought it was really interesting. People might not understand that side of some people, and hearing Tyler talk about, well, here's how I felt for 10 years. Here's what it was like for me while I was like working this hard, and like, it's hard for everybody, but it's also hard for us. Like, it's just interesting to hear him open up and talk about it. I thought it was great. His thoughts and feelings on his kids and raising kids and how difficult that is. And his perspective on child rearing was interesting too. And then there was one, and how like 10 years later, he can like rattle off windmill knowledge.
Yeah,
like,
that was kind of crazy.
Like, yeah, it doesn't leave you, I guess. But anyway,
I'm not like that.
Yeah,
maybe I am with some things, I guess.
Yeah,
but it's pretty crazy to be able to just access that knowledge that's in the back of your brain.
Yeah, so that one was a good listen if you're interested in finance stuff, and if you're in a period of your life where it's not particularly easy. You feel like you're working hard, working a lot for a little. Tyler's the expert. Like, yeah. I mean, they went through some tight times to, like, some of it happened to them. But what I think is neat about Tyler and Nicole's story is that, yes, it happened to him. Like, he got laid off from Vestas. It happened to them. But instead of allowing it to remain something that happened to them, they turned it around and used it as an opportunity and chose to embrace the financial hardship that came after that, and use that as it's now or never. Like, we might as well just pursue what we want to pursue now and really go for it. Mm-hmm. We're already low. We might as well try to build back and never have to experience this again. And I think that that's a great example of turning something that happens to you that you had no control over into an opportunity. And if that resonates with you at all, like that's a must listen. It's a great example of, we all heard that before. And yeah, hearing Tyler talk about it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Some key takeaways for me was, we all know he's a hard worker. Like he's always been a hard worker. And I think a lot of people would look at his success and be like, oh, well, must be nice. It's like, you didn't see the struggle. You didn't see the hard times, not being able to drive 20 minutes, away because you couldn't afford the gas, and like dire straits, you would call those, from being comfortable and having your world rocked like that and your livelihood taken away like instantaneously. And then I think that the biggest thing that got him through that was his drive became more evident in his work ethic, because his whole motivation was, I never want to be in that position again. I want to make myself basically impervious to whatever happens in my environment. I don't want anybody else to be able to say you're fired ever again. And he wanted complete financial freedom. So that was a huge goal. But it doesn't happen unless his wife, Nicole, is behind him all the way. Like, it would be very easy for a spouse, especially a wife. And I know she was working at the time. She was a nurse. So they were working some on and off. But I don't think when he got laid off, she had just had a baby, or they were about to have a baby.
Yeah.
So she wasn't working. And it would be easy for a spouse to say, like, you're not holding up your end of the deal here. Like, you're supposed to provide for us. You're supposed to be there for us. And he said she was nothing but supportive, nothing but just a boost behind him to go out and start going crazy. He quoted a Dave Ramsey quote that was pretty good. He's like, there's only one place to go when you're broke, to work.
Oh, right.
And so we'll clip that. But yeah, a lot of good stuff there. And I don't think I actually knew like the depths of the struggle that they were in. I was in college at the time, as my brother were talking about. And they went to like beans and rice, man. They cut their budget down big time and decided to get after it with some elbow grease.
Yeah.
So that part of the story is pretty awesome. And then for him to be able to now be reaping the benefits a decade later, to where a pandemic happens and he's okay.
Right.
Like, that's the kind of position he wanted to be in, to where we'll be all right if something happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some good knowledge in there for sure. Yeah. He also talked a little bit about that financial freedom, being able to open up opportunities for his family, and being able to go on trips, and getting a team around him that he could trust, so he could go and spend more quality time with his family. And now he's coming to the realization that like, I have my kids in the house for like 8 more years, I think is what he said, or whatever. His younger one is, I want to say 10. I want to say Avery's 10, somewhere in there. Anyways,
7.
I don't know, but he's
only that because he's the same age as Levi.
Oh yeah, 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And but he's realizing like this is the end,
the home stretch.
Yep, home stretch. So
Kids
take that time seriously with them. But yeah, that was pretty good. Anything else on that episode?
No, yeah, it's a good listen. We have to check that out. These recaps are kind of like an index of what might be interesting to some people if you wanted to pick and choose episodes that sounded interesting. So that one is a good one to listen to if you need some encouragement.
Oh yeah,
in that area,
yep.
That's for sure.
Yeah, and really, in a lot of ways, he's been able to expand his operations and his portfolio and stuff like that. But it's been hard work. Like, there's not a lot of people that I know personally who are maybe harder workers than he is.
Yeah,
he's just going all the time.
Yep.
Yeah. So episode 24, Evan Jennings was on. That was a good time.
Yeah, that was election talk, right?
Yeah, that was right before. Actually, it was released on October 22nd, so a couple weeks before.
Yeah.
But yeah, what a smart guy.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. He's always. Yeah, I think he's always been interested in politics, so he's pretty well versed on that. It's always interesting to talk to him about stuff like that. But he also is assistant pastor at CCC, and I don't think we. No, yeah. One of the things that we talked a lot about is a Christian's role in politics, and I think we live in a fairly Christian influenced community, and I don't know if that's something that a lot of people think about. Is I think there is a lot of, it's a hot button issue. Like, well, it's probably not a hot button issue if you feel the way that you feel, but some people might feel like we don't have any role in politics, and some people might feel that, you need to have a role in politics. And then there are people in the middle who don't know which way they should feel. And that was a good one. His opinions on, really, I like to think of it as government, like the Christian's role in government, is probably a better way to put it. And Evan's take on, responsible participation in government as a Christian. And he makes a good case for how it can be pretty critical and important. If you care about the kind of society that you want your children to grow up in, if you care about protecting Christian values for the long run, his view on that is pretty nuanced, and I would encourage anybody who feels like believers shouldn't have any role in government, or if you're not sure which way you should lean, like that's a good one to listen to. Yeah,
and pretty good framework that he has for it too. He talks about Daniel, how Daniel was pretty involved in high level government and was still able to further the kingdom that way. But also he was talking about, it kind of likens to when we had Kurt Heisey on, and he was talking about courage and like going after the Baal of your day. Yep. It's like, I don't know how that could apply more if culturally we're slipping, if in the family we're slipping and faith we're slipping. It takes courage to stand up and do that. So what does that look like in a political realm? It could just be voting. It could just be speaking truth. It could just be some of these things. And I think Evan laid that out really well. So good listen, really good listen. Talked about his work. We talked about, some fitness stuff with him.
That's right. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. He's gifted in that area. So he's good. Yeah. We personally, like Evan and I talk a lot about, both of our like fitness journeys or whatever you would call it. And he's always fascinating to talk to. Like he makes it look easy. Like, so I own a restaurant and he'll bring his scale to the restaurant. Like he'll like weigh his food that he buys. And like, it's just that simple. Like he's like a science-based like guy, and but he makes it look easy. Like I joked about, he'll be back at the gym, and then like a week later I'll go back and it looks like he's been there for a year already. Like, he just,
he looks like Chris Bumstead.
Yeah. I mean, I would take fitness advice from him. He's like a good, what do they call that? A proven case.
Yep. Yeah. He, it seems like he knows he's just a very analytical brain. So everything kind of flows through that.
Yep.
And he gets results from it. Back to the political part of it though. He was actually scheduled to be on a Jubilee video.
Oh,
Have you seen those? Like they're like debate videos or whatever. They're super popular on YouTube. And then that fell through kind of last minute. But
he had. If you watch any of those videos and you click on the view more tab below the video, it'll show you like the links and all that stuff. And they have an application. You apply to all their videos, and that's how they get their participation.
Interesting.
And he had filled one out, and they were like, "Yeah, we'll fly out." He got selected to like fly out to Los Angeles and film it. And that's it was cool. At the time it was kind of on the down low, just because they hadn't released it yet. But he ended up deciding not to do it and coming on our podcast instead. So yeah,
take that, Jubilee. Right
that's
on.
Right. But then later, if you've seen it, like it ended up being they brought on that episode was like they did a Ben Shapiro half and a Destiny half, so he would have gotten to talk to the Destiny.
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
I think Destiny could use a dose of Evan Jennings, if you ask me. So, bummer.
Destiny's having a hard time after the election. No, but I really like Evan's approach. I really like that he's kind of not shove it in your face, even to Christians, about voting and stuff. He's like, I'll just put my cards on the table, is what he said, and like I'm planning to vote, and here's where I stand. Yep. So some good stuff there, and you can kind of vote your convictions and your morals and what you think. And
Evan's he's a good family man. So that's a must listen if you need an example of what it looks like to lead your home in the faith department. It's a great guy.
Yep. Episode 25 was our first repeat guest, right? Yeah.
Corwin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Corwin Christman.
Man, it was a long time ago.
Dude, he's going to be back. We're going to have him on all the time. It's just too much fun.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's too much fun.
Yeah.
And he's a smart guy, and he has a lot to offer, and he's a very good communicator. Gets his points across. We started out that episode talking about business and how he's a kind of a new business owner, but has a lot of practices that are not really normal in a lot of ways. His heart is in a different place than most business owners. And the fruit of what's happening in his business is evident of that. Really appreciated a lot of his insights. And he was actually very interested to learn about scaling. Yeah. We talked a lot about scaling and what that looks like and how to do it, with wisdom and he's just he's a hard worker. Like go back to Tyler, like this is another guy who just works. Yeah,
Corwin is a hard worker and he knows it, and he's such a hard worker. He's got to keep it in check sometimes.
Yeah, he can be too hard of a worker.
Right? Like he'll
well, the first time we had him on was episode. Man, it was
6.
so early. 6?
No, 3.
No. 3.
Yeah, 3.
Yeah, he was the first actual guest. Yep. Yeah, but we had talked about his health journey, and it's just like you said, like he's a hard worker to a fault, really. Right. Like he can get a little bit addictive into whatever he's doing, and took fitness a bit too far. And I mean, I guess if you're going to take a hobby too far, it's one of the better ones.
Those are not bad,
but still, he's a very intentional person. That's for sure. So whatever he's doing, expect it to be done to the best of his ability.
Yep. Yeah. Corwin owns a handyman business, a local handyman business. As far as I've seen, maybe I just don't have the right algorithm for it, but as far as I can tell, he seems to be one of the only handyman service businesses that, does a little bit of advertising, and he's really trying to get his name out there. He's been doing it for I think over a year now. And it could be even more than that. But so it's not like he's brand new, but yeah, he's really going at it. It's this new business that he's got going is, it's really interesting, and I think it's doing well, but yeah, owns a handyman. North Country Handyman is what it's called. Yep. Him and a group of guys. So,
and he's the kind of guy that's like exquisitely professional. Yep. Like he's going to treat you right. Yep. He's going to communicate with you properly. We actually talked about like communication being a key with your clients and building trust and respect and rapport that way. Yep. Like just using. He's like sometimes I over communicate. Yeah. Like if that's even a thing, and so like that's just his personality, and he's gonna go after it. He's gonna do it well, and people gravitate toward that. There's a huge need for that in this community.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Like somebody who you can know that they're just gonna be on the level with you and do the best that they can for your
everybody
project.
Everybody knows that like the construction business has moved towards big projects, and nobody has time for little projects anymore. And I think Corwin's trying to fill that gap in, and yeah.
Seems to be
we
working.
can all relate to that problem. Like, can't get anybody to answer the phone.
Yeah.
So,
we just released a short the other day on YouTube, and he was talking about how his heart would be that to give back as much as he could to people maybe who would need the help.
Right.
And maybe donating like every one Friday a month or something. Just go and work for free for somebody, help for free. I told him when he got to that point to
call.
Come get my fence. I got a fence that needs to go in.
No, you have an application process for that.
You're right, yeah. I'm not exactly sure I'm the person he had in mind or people he had in mind. So then we went on and talked about fitness, of course, endurance, training, running. Thoughts on that? Remember
when I said they were potentially moving? They had potentially were moving 5 minutes away from me, and I had said that I'm great. I'm going to be getting a call from Corwin every day to go for runs. I don't think it was like 2 weeks later. I'm getting a text at like 6 a.m. Hey, you want to go for a run? Oh man!
And you were like,
I nailed it. I called it.
Did you go?
Yeah, no, I couldn't. I was doing something else. I was working that day. I had to go to work. He. All jokes aside, Corwin is an excellent workout partner. When he asks, he cares so much about other people and their fitness journey. And again, all jokes aside, if you can't go for a run with him, he'll still ask you. Like he's just such a good heart for he's got a good heart for that particular area. But he wants to. That was because didn't he? He wanted to get into like long distance running.
Yeah, he's going to start competing.
Which which is like a pretty big change for him. Like that's a pretty big
to compete.
Change. Yeah, to move away from the. He's had a few like changes, like he had like a powerlifting phase where he just wanted to get big, and then he had like
huge.
He's been into kind of functional fitness. Sorry, Sam, for like a long time now.
Sam.
And now he's trying. Now he's moving to that. Kind of like probably it'll be a bit like dual fitness, like some weightlifting, some running, which is super popular right now.
Yeah, hybrid.
Not that that's why he's doing it. I mean, Corwin beats to the tune of his own drum or whatever that's called. Beats to the drum of his own tune.
He is a drummer too, by the way.
Yeah, but
so he literally does.
But like, it's odd to think like, maybe in a year he'll look like a runner. Like that's just different than like, But if anybody can do it, it's going to be him. Yep. I mean, he's already. If anybody can do it, it's him. I mean, he's like won money in competitions doing stuff. Yep. So like,
fitness competitions.
So I mean, he kind of like breezed over that a little bit. And I was kind of like, oh, I didn't know that. I would have loved to talk to him more about what the heck he's thinking about getting into running and why. But
and why anybody would feel possessed to do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely admirable. I mean,
dude, we got into it a little bit in the episode about how much I think, like, I don't relate to long distance running. Yeah, like I love it. I think it's awesome. It's
so hard,
and I can watch YouTube videos all day of people who do it. But like when I get out there, I'm just not.
Yep.
I don't know if I'm not going to say I'm not built that way. It's not.
You might not be.
It's the kind of training that I have never done.
Yeah,
you know, I've always been like sports and explosive movements and not endurance. But I'm like, if there was anybody who was going to do it, this is the guy.
Yeah.
Like he will casually wake up and go run a marathon.
Yeah, and he'll probably be able to do it, which is the biggest factor at our age. Like you get to a point in life where you start to get less out of the workouts that you're doing than they are getting out of you. And that's just an age thing sometimes, but some people don't experience that. Like I don't know that I could do long distance running. Yeah. Not every, body just
takes
starts
a special person.
Body just starts to break down.
Yeah, but he's got all the things.
He's got a good foundation.
Yeah, and I told him, like, dude, you should start, like, he has a YouTube channel, Adventures with the Christman, shout out. Yep. But, like, I think he needs to start a fitness YouTube channel. Yeah. Because he's pretty inspiring. Yep. And he is a go-getter, and everything he does, like we said before, he's very conscientious. He's going to do it the right way, and he's not going to give up. We know that. He'll bring a scale to a restaurant, like he'll be on point. He talked in the first time we had him on about like if it was one too many blueberries, like I don't eat that blueberry. Mm-hmm. Like, how hard is it to get around that kind of discipline?
That's how you get down to 6% body fat.
Yeah, 6% body fat when he won the competition. Yep. Insane. Yeah. But also like he's super fast. He's very athletic. He can just run endurance like you wouldn't believe. He's been lifting weights for 20 years. Probably.
Yeah.
Or more.
Since I've known him, it's been at least 11, 12,
Yeah. So, but even before that, like he'd been working out for a long time, but maybe more seriously in like the last 10 years. Yeah. But man, he's just got like all the pieces where I look at him like that's a hybrid professional athlete in the making if he wanted to be. Yeah,
he's got the motor. He's got the motor for it. Mm-hmm. He's got a motor on him. I mean, it shows in his work and everything. It's no different. Like he's got a motor on him. Yep. Yeah, so he's North Country Handyman, Adventures with the Christmans. And he also
professional runner.
Yeah, and if you're also people might not know this, and soon to be professional runner. He helps people with fitness goals. Like he'll do nutrition plans and
C&H fitness?
Workout. Is that what it's called? Yes, that's right.
Yes,
so he'll do that. So if anybody listening
wants a well-rounded dude right there.
Yeah, wants somebody who can help him with that. Corwin
also, he's hilarious.
Loves that. Yeah, and he's funny.
He's a total goon.
Yeah, and he's like if you're gonna do any of that stuff with him, you're gonna watch him on YouTube. You'll see if you're gonna, get fitness advice from him and try to hook up with him in that way. Like he's like a great workout partner. So you'll love. Yeah, he's just the right guy for it. Yep. Yep, he's got a heart for the Lord too, and that kind of shows in all the stuff that he does. But
he's a stud.
Yep. Andy, we had Andy on
episode 26.
26.
Yep.
Yeah, more election talk. Somebody who's been through the election process locally. So we talked a little bit about that and what it was like putting yourself into the political arena. And Andy is Evan's dad. Evan Jennings' dad, and they're the same person.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
which is good. Like, Andy's a good guy. That's a compliment. I think Andy is like, he's a really smart guy. So like, if you like listening to smart people and hearing their perspective on things, we talked a lot about like green energy and the war in Ukraine and stuff like that, I think. And like, he just can talk about it. Like he's just well-versed and well-rounded and knowledgeable and well-versed on a lot of different topics.
Yeah. Super smart.
He enjoys, that stuff. I think I get the idea, I get the picture, or I get the impression that he, enjoys that kind of, almost like a journalistic kind of mindset. Like he enjoys paying attention to that kind of stuff and keeping up to date on current events, like in second grade current events.
There you go.
And and it sure comes through. We got in a little bit into the efficacy of modern green energy and the direction that it's headed.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting.
And like, he just like was
he knows what he's talking
rattling off stuff, and that was super interesting.
Yep.
I wish we could have talked more about that, but just. I knew that he was a highly intelligent individual, but like, he's really interesting to talk to. That was a lot of fun. That was just like kind of a smorgasbord of information. If you want, you want to listen to that one.
Yeah. It went from his, recent trip to Europe,
right?
What some of the differences in cultures, actually got into a little bit of the politics there, which then translated to politics here, which translated into energy, which translated into the election, which translated into anything you can think of. Really good episode. A lot of good topics, a lot of good information. Wicked smart guy.
Yeah, super smart.
And I also, big highlight for me from that one was the energy conversation.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Super interesting.
So, especially when we're talking about fracking and, and how all that stuff works. So, that's episode 26. So if you want to check that out, you gotta listen to that. And it was right before the election, quite literally, like it released the day before. Right. So just some discussions around that. Episode 27 was Ezra Siegrist.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Our second repeat guest.
Yeah.
I do believe.
Good one. Yeah. Ezra's the man.
It was nice to have somebody on post-election who we may not agree with on certain things. It's also fun to not live in an echo chamber.
Right.
Like it's important to have maybe difficult discussions or a little more contentious discussions.
Yep.
I honestly think sometimes those are the most important, maybe.
Yeah. No matter how uncomfortable they might make you to listen to them.
Yeah.
Which may have been how some people felt if they listened to that one, but for those people, we thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah. Not my sentiments at all. I thought it was great. I'd do it again.
Yeah. I think there were some comments about how it was uncomfortable, and it was like, I really didn't feel that. I mean, there was times when it got a little bit
disagreeable.
Yeah, just contentious maybe, or a little bit, disagreeable. That's a good word.
I do not think that that's a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. I don't know why everyone thinks that like when somebody disagrees with you, that you should shut the conversation down or you should move on or you should do whatever. It's like, actually, no, the harder conversations are the ones you need to have. Yeah. And the more that you don't have those hard conversations, the more that you start to polarize yourself from other people.
Yeah. And there's a line in how you treat people in those hard conversations that get contentious. And I don't think we crossed that line.
No.
At like once.
No. Well, because we saw Ezra a couple of days later and yeah, it's just normal life.
It's not that big a deal.
Great conversations after we stopped recording too, and all of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But it was very good to have him on. Not a Trump fan.
Nope.
It's fine. Not most people. Most people aren't. Well,
a lot of people aren't. Yeah.
And just kind of some of the discussion around.
Yeah, we talked a lot. Sorry to interrupt. We talked a lot about like what does it mean to not be a Trump fan. That was kind of the theme of the conversation, I think, is can there be a difference between being a Trump fan, or should that even be how it's phrased? Like that's kind of what it is. It's I'm not a Trump fan. Well, can we break the idea of quote unquote Trump down into more nuanced categories and just discuss it from that perspective and not just kind of give it this overarching label. Yeah. And maybe you don't need to be a Trump fan in general, but can we maybe call it something else? Can we say, like maybe we can agree that, morally this may not be, we wouldn't say that like he's a role model to young children, maybe, you know, like we can all see areas where that would be difficult to argue against.
To defend, yeah, for sure.
To defend. But like, yeah, I mean, peace treaties at the end of his first term, that's a great thing. Like, can we look at it in a more nuanced way? That was kind of the theme of the conversation is, can we look at the election in a more nuanced fashion?
Yeah. I also think that it's exactly what you said. I mean, any pundit that you listen to, especially from the oppositional side of Trump, would say that basically anybody who votes for him is a supporter.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is fair.
It's very unnuanced.
Very unnuanced, puts everybody in a category. Right. And then you start to lump in with, you know, oh, well, then you just give him carte blanche to do whatever. It's like, no. Yep. And I think a very large percentage of people who voted for him, not going to say supporters necessarily,
right, exactly. The difference,
would say policies matter to me. That's pretty much it. I'm not looking at the guy's character as much. I don't think that he's the next Hitler. I don't think that he's going to, you know, bring chaos on the world like you would hear that.
Yeah,
and
then, there are some echo chambers that fear is really pounded into people, and I think that that's where people like on our side of the argument where we're saying, hey, can it be more nuanced? To give the benefit of the doubt to the other perspective, it's possible that those people haven't been shown a nuanced perspective yet.
Yeah,
because all they're seeing is the fear mongering and whatever their social media algorithm looks like, whatever news outlets they're watching. It's possible that they're only being shown one side of the story,
right?
And which is why the discussion needs to happen, because I don't think we're expecting people to have a nuanced perspective right out of the gate, because they might not have the ability to do that. But that's where the discussion comes in. Yeah. And we can say, whoa, hold on. We're not Trump supporters. We voted for Trump, and there might be a difference. So
exactly.
Anyway, yeah.
And then you can break down the difference based on many different policy points or characteristics of the country or how it was and what you think was better. There's really, when it comes down to foreign policy, when it comes down to domestic issues, when it comes down to the economy and immigration, I think there's a lot more gray area to those conversations that people don't explore. It's just, if you voted for Trump, you're a MAGA supporter, and it's black and white, and you're a bad person. Right. That's how it feels a lot of times. Mm-hmm. And in fairness, there's a lot of that the other way too.
Yep. So like there needs to be a conversation somewhere in the middle. And I'm actually pretty encouraged by the election.
I think that it was a big referendum on not only the incumbency, and that's been something that I've been able to look into more. Incumbents pretty much globally after the pandemic were gone. Just seems to be the way. People weren't very happy with how it was dealt with. People weren't happy with the economy, and then they would blame that on whoever's in office, and then they were gone. We'll see what happens with Trudeau.
Yep.
In Canada.
Right.
So there's definitely a part of that, but I think it's a big referendum on the establishment and how to take care of business and maybe get some rid of the bloated government and overreach and a lot of this stuff and kind of get back to the core values of the country. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about a lot of the demographic switches. Mm-hmm. It seems like, oh man, I saw one graph, it had all the arrows and it tells you which way it points for, which way a place is trending. Mm-hmm. And it just seems like there's starting to be an awakening to, have you seen any of the new like Cenk Uygur interviews? Mm-mm. He was on with Tim Pool and he was on with PBD. Really good stuff.
Yeah.
Very, populist movement stuff.
Surprising takes, you mean?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen
when he keeps his emotions in check. Like he's not.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that's what happens. Like, and he's got a huge following.
Yeah.
So I hope there's a middle ground that we can come to and then be like, guys, we actually want the same things. We just maybe have different approaches on it. And maybe we don't call each other the extreme all the time.
Yeah. And to remember that, to give the benefit of the doubt that people that are happy about the country returning to its core values are not saying, wow, Trump is our moral leader and he is going to return us to our core values.
Correct.
But understanding that people are a little smarter than that, and it's a process. It doesn't happen in 4 years. Yeah. It's nice to see something maybe starting. And I don't think it's going to be finished in 4 years, but it's nice to see a bit of a return. And one man doesn't dictate the core values of the country. Yep. It's not like, but that's, I think, what's being heard is this one man is going to return us to our core values, and they're thinking we're nuts, or you're nuts if you think that. Yep. I don't think that's what's being said. I think it's just nice to see one man can have an effect on the overall agenda, and I think we need to stop putting our trust in one person and have that nuanced conversation and really what it comes down to is just an overall generational return is what is exciting. Maybe we can get rid of some of the crazy ideas that have been floating around for the last 5-10 years and maybe focus more on the important issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Start coming together on the core issues that matter, that most people agree on. The craziest part is that it's not these fringe topics that we're talking about. When it comes to the economy, there's pretty strong consensus across the board, statistically speaking. When it comes to immigration, it's a little bit different. But most people would say, like, if you come over and commit a crime, like, people are on the same page on that, you know, or like there has to be more discussions than just blanket accusations thrown at everybody, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And like, it's not to say that that Trump side doesn't do that. They do a lot. And like, there has to be some accountability there. And I'm hoping that people who voted for him, who aren't the no matter what Trumpers, are willing to push back on that.
Right. Pay attention to what happens in the next 4 years and maybe he can earn a better reputation.
We'll see. Time will tell.
Yep.
We'll have Ezra on in 4 years.
Yeah.
No, we'll have him on before that for sure. Yeah, really good conversation. And Ezra is extremely intelligent, very smart guy.
Yeah. He's somebody that we can have him on and talk about anything. And he
knows about it.
Yeah. He's just
jealous.
I love talking to him. Yeah.
The people who have just like, he feels like he has a photographic memory,
right?
But it's not just like he remembers it. He remembers it in detail.
Yeah.
I mean, he talked about that a little bit when we had him on the first time, about how, like, when he hones in on something, like, he wants to know everything about it.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. We talked about, like, the swine. Remember that?
Right. Yeah.
The pork.
I started that book. It's really good.
You would start that book.
Yeah. I'm a couple chapters in. It's very good. Yeah. Ezra reminds me of, like, he's old fashioned and doesn't waste his time. Like, maybe he plays video games. I don't know. But like, he loves his job, drives concrete truck during the concrete season, and loves, like, whatever he does it with excellence, and that just makes an interesting person to talk to. He doesn't spend his time doing. He seems to always be busy doing things, whether he'll driving truck or driving concrete truck or going to fix up a flip house he's working on, or he's at his son Eric's house flipping his house. Like, he's just always doing something, and he's kind of lived a life of that, and he's in his 40s, I think. And yeah, it just makes for an interesting person to talk to. Like, he's just kind of old fashioned like that. He's a hard worker and doesn't waste his time. He wants to be good at what he does, and is kind of become a bit of a wealth of knowledge. And
you appreciate those
also,
qualities.
Yeah, and he's also hilarious. So he's a bit of a storyteller, and he's just a really interesting person.
Yeah, I enjoy being around him too. Like, and that should show you how the conversation went. Like, it's okay to disagree about things and try to find some middle ground and understanding. And he's also that way. Like, if you present him with some evidence, he's not like just going to shut you down and stay to talking points or something like a lot of people would. No, he's like willing to listen and learn. And, we talked a little bit about immigration and some common ground there. And so, I thought it was good conversation.
Yeah. Good ideas too. He's a thinker. Yeah. He's a bit of a philosopher. Yeah, he's a bit of a philosopher.
Maybe we should get into that next time we have him.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Some philosophy. We'll give him the real hard ones. Like, what is happiness?
I bet he's got some. I bet he's read like a number of philosophy books, and he'd probably know everything about it.
Yep. All right. Let's move on. Episode 28. By the way, just a disclaimer for everybody. This is not I'm looking right into the camera. This is not an excuse not to go watch the episodes, because we only touch on it. We really don't do them justice at all. It just gives you an idea of who we had on, kind of an overview of what we talked about.
We're probably fitting 20 hours of stuff into 1 hour.
Correct.
Best way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, really good stuff.
Yeah.
Also, we produce a lot of like YouTube shorts and I guess you call them Facebook Reels or whatever, so people can get some ideas, some key stuff taken away there. Episode 28 was our first part of our Legacy series. And that's really going to focus on, the generation or two before us. So some really good lessons to learn in these. Anticipating some more of those coming up. But this one was with Melvin Theodore Zehr the First, which is my grandpa. Take it away.
Yeah. Price of maple syrup used to be $5 a gallon.
That's what you got.
That's all I got.
Yeah, that is kind of crazy to think about. Yeah. Now it's 60.
Yeah.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, it's like it averages like 50 depending on who you buy it from.
Insane.
$50 a gallon. Yeah,
that's so crazy.
Yeah, the yeah, this gets my blood boiling. Around the time that we had that was there. Okay, so he talked about getting ice cream for his family.
Yeah,
yeah. So he would ride his bike 2 miles or 2 miles to the restaurant. Businesses were weird back then. Like we have like so much specialization nowadays, but like 80 years ago, like one business did like 17 different things. Like a soda shop, they were also a drugstore, and they were also a restaurant, and like made and served ice cream, and like so he went to that's what I imagined he meant. Like he went to a restaurant, and I pictured like a soda shop type place. But anyway, probably was just a restaurant, and they would sell like pints of ice cream, and then he would ride his bike 2 miles back. 2 miles maybe. I don't remember that part, but it was a long way for was he 11? So he did when he was 11?
Yeah, he was young.
And around that time.
But for how much ice cream?
Yeah, for a pint with 8 people. With 8 people. He had 6 siblings, right?
Dude,
and
I
2
could polish a pint
parents, yeah.
By myself.
Easy.
I
mean, they could get a half gallon at Stewart's. It might be half gone by the end of the night. Let's be honest. Okay. That's a quart. It's a quart.
Still.
Yeah, it's a half gallon is a quart. Yeah, a pint of ice cream is like those Ben and Jerry things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like
those are easy. That's a sampling.
Yeah. For 8 people, bringing home one of those Ben and Jerry pints, like.
Yeah, he was like, we would all get a couple spoonfuls of ice cream.
And it was like a highlight.
Yeah, and we're talking in the 1940s, 50s.
So, anyway, so around that time, there was a news story of a lady who the police came knocking on her door because her 11-year-old walked a mile into town to do something. I don't know if it was a family chore or if he was going to a friend's house. I have no idea. Events? Yeah, and he was gone for a purpose, and the mom knew. Like she had sent him to town for something. Town was a mile away. He was 11. I went way further than a mile away from town when I was a kid. Like just playing with kids in the neighborhood, we'd ride our bikes 2 miles to go to the park or something. Like it's not that big a deal. Apparently, that's not true anymore. And she got in trouble for. Like
trouble how?
Somebody, I don't know how the phone call happened, but somebody called the police and said, "Hey, there's a kid here." And when the police showed up at her door, and she told them, "Yes, we live a mile from town. He's walking into town for something I can't remember." That wasn't the end of it. Like that should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. They kept at it, and they ended up arresting her.
Get out of here.
Yeah, she got arrested. They took her away. And I'm sure that was like a month ago. I'm sure she got some good lawyers, and like I'm hopeful / sure that nothing came of it. But how wild is that? Like, you're not allowed to let your kid walk a mile into town.
If you're in favor of taking a mother to jail, or even calling, this is what I mean, it's okay to call and be like, there's an 11-year-old walking side of the road, blah, blah, blah. Just check on him. Welfare check. That's fine.
That's as far as it should go.
That is as far as it should go. Then make sure that it's okay with the mother and that it's all part of the plan. If you're of the opinion that parent should be punished for that, then I have words for you.
Yeah.
Like, come on the podcast and try to justify it for me. Honestly.
Yeah.
It blows my mind. You have no right.
Right.
Who's pressing charges there? I'm assuming the state for child risk
CPS,
of injury,
state,
child endangerment. That is crazy.
The crazy thing is that she was of complete sound mind. Like she was like a very rational human being. Like she was like, "Are you kidding me? Like you're here wasting time on my," like she was very, very much all there. Not the situation. It didn't go the way that it should have gone. But I was thinking about that, like as he was telling that story, I was thinking like how times have changed.
I didn't hear that story.
Yeah, I didn't want to ruin the legacy story. But I think
there's a balance between when the state needs to get involved, and that is not it. And there's a lot of stories. Listen, Department of Children's Services, all that kind of stuff. It's different for every state. We're DCF in Connecticut, but like they do a lot of good things. But some of that stuff is just completely needs some common sense brought into the picture because
it's a really fine line that is hard to toe, because in some I've seen applications where like, thank goodness that they stepped in and literally, like, there are situations where, like, oh, I'm glad CPS was called. Like, that is a situation where, but then there's like situations where it's the exact opposite. And
that what it is here, Child Protective Services.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that, kind of like, I think we talked about that with Andy, is that anytime you get big government, there's just going to be organizational inefficiency. And
sure. Yeah. Maybe
when you try to serve a massive public and try to offer a public good to a massive amount of people.
Yeah, it's possible.
It's like not going to be as efficient as it should be, but I
can understand that.
Anyway, yeah.
But just to that point, I don't know. I know people personally who have taken their kids out of school for 2 weeks to go on a vacation and got a call from DCF.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, where is the line? Because I can tell you that that's not it. And threatening them, like, okay, like if you're going to take them out of school that long, we'll call like DCF. Are you kidding me?
Right. I don't know. I've heard to me, they're just rumors because I don't.
That's
I don't
a real
have
story
any,
that's a real story. Yeah,
I mean, what I'm about to say, I don't mean, I've heard, I've never had personal experience, but I've heard, so to me, they're just rumors or secondhand information that, you just got to make the phone call and they have to investigate. And
that is true because they are mandatory reporters in most things and you have to look into it to some degree. But who's looking into that? That means what happened in that situation, likely, this is just from my experience in my career, likely law enforcement went out there, touched base with the mother, and then they made a referral, which is wild. And
they have to act on behalf of the child.
If there's some kind of validating reason, like
reasonable suspicion just goes out the window. Like,
so
it doesn't make any sense.
If you're making contact with the mother and everything's on the up and up, there's no reason there.
Yeah.
So like, if that's what happens, which is likely what happened, because like DCF or what is it? What did you say? CPS here isn't just going to be like on the scanner and like, oh, there's a child involved, we're gonna go get involved. No, it's like they have to have referrals and they have to go through the proper channels. So that is infuriating because. Yeah. Dude, I would love to see them come and try to do that here.
Yeah, it would be. You know what?
Like,
I don't understand.
There's at some point you're violating somebody's rights.
Yeah, 100%.
So
100%.
There has to be some wisdom there.
Yeah, the thing that I can't figure out, the disconnect that I just do not understand is, and maybe I'm like totally naive. I'm very much open to the fact that I could be very naive on this, but why it's so easy for something like that to happen to that lady. But like, there are children in our own community who are trapped in their homes.
Yeah. And Sheriff Carpinelli made that clear to us, some of the stuff that's going on in the state,
because you hear the stories about
the county.
You hear the stories about how you also hear the stories on the opposite side of things where it's like so hard to
mount the evidence for, probable cause even. Yeah.
What is the disconnect? And again, maybe I'm naive, but
I think this is what happens when you have human beings running things. Yeah. Like there has to be processes that are in place, obviously, and you have to be competent enough to know when to pursue something and when not to. But like, it's exactly like you said, where people will be like, okay, in a domestic violence situation or something, the law enforcement looks over it two or three times and then something really bad happens. And you're like, you guys investigated this already. Why did nothing happen? Meanwhile, somebody lets their kid walk down the road and that's like
it's the end of the world.
Supreme Court case.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I don't understand.
Yeah.
But anyway,
yeah.
It didn't used to be like that.
That's where we are. That's where we are now.
Yeah.
And like and you can go to farms too, man. Like, you're telling me an 11-year-old can't walk into town? Go to a farm and tell me how old those kids are driving massive tractors.
Right. I drive through town almost every day and see kids walking to school that I know live a mile away from school.
Or biking. Like,
it's like
this is a known thing.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'll have to look into see.
That is why you should listen to these legacy episodes. It's a glimpse into a different time, a different world, a different time.
Man, so many things from that episode.
I know.
Oh my gosh,
dude, times have changed.
When he was in a one-room schoolhouse with his, he was talking about his teacher was like legally blind.
That's right. So you would just leave?
Yeah. And they made him stay back a year. Yeah. And we were like, how do they even know you weren't there? It's like, prove it. I was in the back the whole time. Hilarious, man. I love that, man.
That's funny.
He is coming up on 90. And for people who don't know either, he had a pretty significant fall that took the vision in his left eye. Was it? I think. And his health has really kind of declined a lot since then. And some battles with cancer and some different things. But the fall really didn't help his memory. So a lot of the stuff that he would recall or could tell us about is just the tip of the iceberg for the knowledge and the wisdom he has.
He is a lively man. Like, he's always had a very lively personality.
Yeah.
But you can still see that. You can still see that in him through the accidents he's had as of late, and you can still see that side of him. That it's his personality. It still comes through. It's nice.
But I feel this way about both my sets of grandparents, and it's a thing that I really idolize about them, I guess you could say, or I really admire, is that they're just grateful. Like, they just have grateful hearts. It doesn't take much at all to make them content. They're content, grateful people.
Yeah.
Like, they don't need much. They're very happy with very little. And that is something our culture doesn't get. But when you start to look at the way he was raised, dude, you get it. Like, ice cream was a luxury, and you had to walk 2 miles into town to get it. No matter the weather, you come back for a couple spoonfuls. That's 4 miles. Even if it's only 1 mile, that's 2 miles of walking for a little bit of ice cream.
Yeah.
Or, living back then in uncertain times of the draft or growing up and just there's so much about that generation that we need to capture. Yeah,
it is a necessary. It's necessary to capture things like that and to listen to people like that, because, like, I don't feel like I will ever comprehend at all what it was like to be in his shoes.
Yeah,
but, like, there's still something important about keeping those memories alive. Because they do impart a bit of reminder, a big reminder to be grateful and to think about, like, my kids in that position, because I'm a father, and I think about, like, his parents told him to bike. Like, I think about what if my kids lived in that life, and it just makes me very grateful. And we need the reminders to feel that, even though I will never comprehend. It's just a good reminder to be grateful.
Yeah,
it's unreal how different it was back then.
Yeah, like, just a totally different lifestyle, totally different world.
Yeah.
It's just amazing to see the life creep and how much we take for granted now, like the stuff in the studio or just the stuff in my freezer, the stuff in my fridge. Right. Dude, when he said they had a communal refrigerator in town, like, they took all of their cold stuff to town in a giant ice box, and you'd go and get what you needed.
Yeah.
Like, what if you don't live close to town?
Right. Yeah, because electricity wasn't a thing. Like, people didn't have freezers. They might have had an ice box in their house, but like, maybe that wasn't a normal thing.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't. People weren't putting out amperage.
Yeah,
it's just
and like,
it's time to be grateful.
I had a ton of questions on that one. Like, where are they getting the ice from for that community ice locker? Or was it? This would have been in the 40s and 50s. So they definitely had electricity. I wonder if they were doing that with electricity, or if it was they were, like, bringing in ice every couple of days or something. I don't know.
And something to realize too is, like, when you're living in rural, like, when you're rural in the 1930s and 40s and 50s, like, stuff took a while to get here.
Right.
So, like, it's really probably like a decade behind. Christman talked about that. He's like, people get VHS, and, like, 9 years later we got VHS. So different time, different world. Yep. Listen to that. This man, I just cherish him so much. I'm a little bit selfish with that episode. I wanted to get him on film, so that my kids and my grandkids can know who he was. Yeah. What a legacy that he's leaving for us. So, yeah, powerful. Yeah. Check that one out. That's episode 28. Let me just reset and we'll do the last two, yeah?
Sure.
Roger.
I'm glad that we'll be able to have Grandpa Roggie on, because I'm sure you feel the same. Imagine if we could have had Mel on
10 years
ago.
Yeah.
And that makes it all the more important that we get Grandpa Roggie on.
Yeah, so there'll be more in the Legacy series, so look out for those. We have actually one of those hopefully coming up here soon. And just, I'm all about downloading knowledge from those guys. You want to talk about hard workers, you want to talk about going through hard things. Dude, we don't have a clue.
Yeah.
We are so isolated in our little bubble here in the United States. Everything comes easy to us. People struggle, but not the same kind of way. No way. The United States has a very good safety net socially.
Right.
And some of the stuff that, he was talking about was just like, that time is done. It seems like we're just too rich of a country, too rich of a nation. And a lot of the issues that we have now are kind of self-inflicted.
Yeah.
Yep. So, if if we wanted to really get to the root of those problems, we could and we should. So moving on to episode 29, Christman. Really great episode. Yeah. Easy, super fun.
Yeah.
Wanting to have him on for a while, and it worked out really nice to have him. He's a business owner, he's a YouTube content creator for the Gravestone Pros. Yep. Just a family man through and through. We did touch at the end about parenting, which probably should have been more like the most of what we talked about, because he has some great things to say.
Yeah, his eyes and his demeanor changed when he started talking about parenting. He's obviously about it. I have not talked to Christian much about specifically parenting stuff, like and so that was kind of the first I saw him get going on his beliefs on parenting and his methods, and I was like, oh man, like he's obviously really passionate about it. So
that's happened to us a few times where like we had somebody on and then like we save a discussion for later on, and just happens to work out in the conversation, and then we're like, oh, we probably should have led with this. Yeah,
like he would have went off. Like if we had another hour, he would have completely went off on.
Yeah, and it was already like an hour and a half episode.
Yeah. So we got to have him back on for just parenting.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he's Corwin's brother.
Yep.
And so a lot of the same, upbringing, and maybe that's all a testament to Kurt. But he's a really fun person to be around. He's super kind, super loving. If you know Christian, I don't think anybody would disagree with that. Like, definitely doesn't have a mean bone in his body. Just a real good guy. That's a must listen. Talked about Farming Simulator. And I was going to say,
that's right, we did.
I got to apologize to Christian because
you tried it out.
no, I haven't.
Right.
But I gave him a bit of jokingly gave him a hard time about Farming Simulators. But back in the day, I'd crank out some time on Farmville.
Farmville.
You remember
when
Farmville?
That first came out?
The Facebook game, the cartoon farm game.
Yep.
I remembered that later, and I was like, oh, I'm such a hypocrite. But
yeah, we've all done the same thing.
Yeah, Farmville is the bomb.
Yeah, that was
Still
awesome.
Play some Farmville.
I remember that.
It was around. Yeah,
we used to figure out ways to get like in study halls in high school and stuff. Try to get that
on the computers.
That's cool.
Good times. Anyway, yeah.
Good old public education.
That's right.
Dude, so much good stuff. Like we talked about, finding podcasts or shows on the way up, how that's kind of fun. Mm-hmm. And he's a big time listener, big fan of the Easier Said podcast, and we appreciate that. But like he's also been on YouTube for how many years was it? 9?
Yeah, a long time.
And then he's like during COVID doubled down and started to be more intentional about it.
Right. Yeah. He did say he was kind of inactive for a bit, but kind of that same. If you're gonna succeed on like YouTube or social media, like it doesn't happen overnight for most people. It's like after 10 years, then you see the hard work. So he's been on for 9, but really active for the last since COVID, and he just if he kept at it, I wouldn't be surprised if he could make a decent following. And
he said too that and he's got a decent following and he makes some money on it, but he said it just becomes a matter of how much I want to put into it. And dude, even with this, content creation is a lot of work. I have a whole new appreciation for content creators and influencers. Yeah. It's a lot of work. Yeah. And I love that he's at a place now where he could really take off with it, just depending on how much he wants to work at it. Mm-hmm. But there's growing processes there, and any YouTuber will tell you that. Anybody that's on the internet will tell you that. We've been pretty lucky with our growth, but a lot of people would say I got no views. Chris Williamson, Modern Wisdom Podcast, he said we got no views for months. Mm-hmm. Zero. And his, fast forward.
One of the biggest podcasts in the world.
7-8 years, however long it's been. Oh yeah, he's at 3 million subscribers somewhere. It's just consistency and hard work. And Christian has, talked about how, you got to balance that stuff too with family, and you can't take away all your time. And, but no, then we went on to talk a little bit about what he does for work. He owns a company that makes gravestones. And then his YouTube videos are all about that. So he's had one that's like 150,000 views, something crazy. I'll pull it up and fact check myself. Really interesting stuff though.
I've been making gravestones with my dad for over 30 years.
There it is.
He has the greatest intro tag.
Is that on TikTok or is
That's
that?
where I've seen most of it. Maybe he does it for his YouTube as well.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like so catchy.
Oh yeah, dude, look at this. Okay, so let's go to his videos.
I don't know if he does it for every single one, but he should.
Yeah, 158,000 views on that video. But really cool stuff. Internet's a cool place if you're putting on some wholesome.
Yeah, like how many places can you go to get information on, recreational information on making monuments?
Yeah,
like,
one place.
Yeah, it's pretty niche.
Yeah,
cool.
the internet is an interesting thing too. Like it's the access to knowledge is like crazy.
Yeah,
if you want to learn, it's at your fingertips.
Right.
So it's
No
kind
excuses.
of making the excuse for ignorance kind of
more and more obsolete.
yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Like you don't really have an excuse anymore. Like if you're gonna have an opinion about something,
It's wild.
you have the ability right now to go and learn enough
Anything.
to have a good grasp on what it is.
So it's so crazy
Anything.
that like, yeah, I really feel like everybody knows like, yeah, you can learn anything on the internet, but like when you really apply it in your life, you see just how crazy it is. Like I have a specific vehicle or I have a specific piece of equipment that I need to fix. The odds that I can Google that specific item that I have and that somebody else in this world has made a video on that specific item on how to fix the specific problem on that specific item or machine that I need to fix.
Happen to be using.
It's there.
Step by step.
Yeah, it's there.
Yep.
It's just wild.
That's how I built my
Yeah.
I built my second daughter's crib that way.
Yeah.
Because the instructions were horrendous. Like there was like nothing good. Didn't
Exactly.
tell me how to do it. I was like, how am I supposed to follow this?
Yeah, somebody else like happened to have the same problem.
I actually looked at the manual for once. Yeah, so I YouTubed it, and there was 5 guys with here's how you put this thing together, and step 1, step 2, and it's a breeze.
Yeah,
so
it's nuts.
Yeah, you can learn a lot on there.
Yep.
But yes, at the end we got into parenting and family. Very interesting that he has a different relationship with his kids as far as going to work than he did with his dad. Right. He worked with his dad because he was homeschooled, and now he's driving to work away from his kids for the duration of the day. And it's a little bit, he's learning how to navigate that. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, his kids are getting older, and he's kind of thinking more about that. And yeah, I never thought about that. Like, yeah, it is really. I find it really interesting when I meet other dads that have that same concern, because I think about that a lot too. Like, how much is work? What's the opportunity cost with your kids of going to work every day and spending all that time away? And some people would believe that. Some people believe that that is a dad's role. That dad shouldn't be in the house all the time because there's just a way of nature and stuff. Have you ever heard that before?
Yeah,
really. Like it's good for dads to be gone. Like it's like a natural
Absence
thing.
makes the heart grow fonder.
Yeah, like if a dad, like on the reverse side of things, if a dad was home as much as traditionally, if a dad was home as much as the mom was, that like the household doesn't operate as well.
The dynamic is different.
Yeah, okay. And I've heard that. I don't know if it's true, but anyway, like hearing Christian talk about that, I'm like, yeah, I know. I feel the same way. Like, at what point is there like a law of diminishing returns with your kids as far as how much we work away from the home and seeing their lives go by between the hours of 5 and 9 and versus like all that time you missed during the day. And I just think I'm always like, people are always a lot deeper than I think I give them credit for at face value. And it's really interesting for me to hear other dads have those deep thoughts. Like, yeah, is it worth going to work 10, 12 hours a day? I just think it's really interesting to find that I'm not the only person who thinks that way.
What else from the parenting conversation stuck out to you?
Mostly that, like just hearing him talk about that specific thing. Like I said, I love to hear other people's perspective on our modern system and how it takes us away from our children and how we should feel about that and how the struggle that a lot of dads probably have, and that I'm not the only one that has struggled with that in the past. It's a big one.
He talked a little bit too about discipling your child, kind of, and some of the origins therein about how. It's not about punishing. And if it's about punishing, you're wrong. Right. You're wrong to be punishing out of a heart of anger. Not that anybody is free of that guilt. Right. We've done that. Everybody's done that. Yep. And so learning that your response and your attitude and the way you handle situations rubs off way more. It's way more important. Yeah. Very good stuff.
He told that story about, what was it? So, what was one of his children doing? That
Siegrist was going,
right. which is
Every
so
time they
hard
would
because
tell
it's
him
cute. Yeah, but it ends up not being cute after enough times. But yeah,
That's for sure.
Oh, so hard.
Yep.
I like that. I am the same way. Like I agree with him 100% on that. But sometimes as a parent, and that is how I would parent.
Yep.
But sometimes as a parent, you forget the simple stuff like that. Simple things like 100% consistency on an issue with your kids and disciplining it 100% of the time.
Yep.
And just hearing him lay that very simple concept out and give an example with his kids.
Yeah.
Like we had something at home that needed that kind of application. And so like I went home and the next day one of our kids was doing something very similar. And Isla does that. She'll, if you tell her something she doesn't want to do, she'll go. and I'm like, holy moly! Like I should have already known this, but like Christian reminded me that we should be like really dealing with that on a more consistent basis because the kids will get away with it 50% of the time.
Yeah.
50% of the time you deal with it, and the other 50% of the time they get away with it. And it's like, no, like
takes twice as long to.
Yeah, just hearing that story from Christian is like a good. Yeah, parents need like encouragement and reminders on the simple stuff because we get so much in the trenches on a daily basis that it's easy to forget that you made promises to yourself and to your kids that you would be consistent. It's so easy to forget that. So I love that story, and it's cute. It's freaking cute.
Yeah, and you have to be consistent with your spouse.
Yeah.
Because if you decide that you and your spouse are going to work on something diligently like that, and discipline, everybody has the connotation that discipline means like physical discipline. It means discipling your child. Mm-hmm. So if that means addressing an issue 40 times in one day because you have to be consistent, it doesn't mean that you're
hitting them 40 times a day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if your spouse isn't on the same page and you're gone to work for 8-9 hours a day, nothing's going to get better.
Right.
It's not going to get better. If you're from 5 to 9, you're giving the discipline, and then from 8 till 5, it's a little lackluster, or the other way around. Daddy gets home from a long day. He doesn't want to be disciplining his children. He wants to just have fun and play with the kids. It's like, no, you still have to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So be on the same page with your spouse.
Yep.
A lot of good stuff. Check that out. Episode 29. Episode 30 was just a home team special with these two goons that are talking to you right now. I'll speak for myself, I guess. And, just kind of where we're at in life, what's going on. We won't recap that one. You can go watch it for yourself. But yeah, we just talked a little bit about, I don't even hardly remember. It's just life.
No, just an
all-in-one hangout with us.
Episode, yeah.
Yep. Hang out with us.
General hangout.
Episode 31 was one we were really excited about. Unfortunately, we couldn't have Nick for it. He had prior obligations. So I got to interview solo Rudolf Balazhinec and James Sliz, and they are giving us a good perspective of what's happening in Ukraine firsthand. That's pretty good to have that. Yeah. Their perspectives were really refreshing, really good. It just like we were talking about before about being grateful. Like we need to have a reality check here. We're not under constant attack, constant threat with a world superpower directly
right next to us,
right next door with allies who they feel are not really supporting them. Just a great episode. I know you haven't gotten a chance to quite get up to date on it, but yeah, I mean, they are the heads of Family of Christ International. It's a nonprofit organization over there that takes humanitarian aid and disperses it to the front lines, to the orphanages, to the hospitals, to the widows, to orphans alike. Dude, amazing story. Some of the stuff that they were talking about. He was speaking with my dad later at a different event, and he had talked about how in Ukraine, like when you're hanging out, like you go to coffee. That's just what they do.
Okay.
Like it's kind of, we'll go talk and hang out and have some coffee and get to know each other, or just get to know each other better and hang out with your friends and whatever. He says now we just go to funerals.
That took a dark turn.
Yep. He says that's all we do now. He goes, and he was, he'd be sitting here and getting messages and.
That is unfortunate.
Dude, what is going on over there is it's hard to get good numbers, and I mentioned this to him too. It's hard to get good numbers on what's actually going on over there because there is a lot of propaganda around that war. It's crazy. Nobody really knows the death tolls. Nobody really knows how many civilians are dying. Nobody really knows how many soldiers are dead. But somewhere in like the 600,000 soldier range sounds right, and counting fast. And we don't know the civilian counting. And some of the stories, he goes, my phone is full of videos people are sending me from drone strikes. And dude, they're talking about drones being sent over. I think he said Chinese drones, or I'm not sure exactly whose drones they are, but bringing them over and strapping grenades to them, like the little drones, like you'd have, strapping grenades to them, and then just like flying at children and families and school buses. And what is that? Like, just insane. This is firsthand accounts, by the way. So like, you guys can fact check it if you want, but like, he has the receipts on his phone, and he's like, they send us these videos all the time and say like, you're next, so be prepared. And he talked about how there's North Korean soldiers in Ukrainian territory right now. So he's like, basically, this is World War III for us. You know, so who's sending the missiles? Iran. You know, who's firing them? Russia. Who's in combat with us? Russia. There's North Korean soldiers. He's like, we're fighting all these fronts. So if you want to know what it feels like to be on the ground there in the front lines of a very huge war, there's a lot of politics in the U.S., and I'm kind of at the place now after having that discussion of like most of the outrage in the U.S. is that we're funding the war. We're spending billions and billions and billions, hundreds of billions, kind of funding a proxy war, more or less. And from the Ukrainian perspective, it was very interesting because he brought up I think it's a Budapest memorandum in 1994, which essentially had Ukraine, you know, laying down some of its nuclear weapons for protection in the future. It didn't come. So they feel very betrayed that we're not backing them like we should be. Mm-hmm. You know, and in a lot of ways, and a lot of, you know, analysts, foreign policy analysts would tell you, like, we kind of provoked this. You know, we've been coming further and further to Russia and crossing over different red lines, and how it's been kind of an escalation on our end. You know, Dave Smith would talk about how, you know, if we know what happened when Russia tried to put nuclear weapons in Cuba. Mm-hmm. You know, like President JFK was willing to blow up the world, basically. And he goes, the same perspective is maybe true with Russia. We've been encroaching. He said to stop. We've been encroaching. And then the current administration decided to go to a summit and say that they wanted to make Ukraine part of NATO, which is another red line. And then that's kind of what provoked the war. Wherever the line lies in there, Russia has said many times that he would have aspirations to unite the Soviet Union, and like that's one of the greatest downfalls of the last century was the fall of the Soviet Union and stuff like that, you know. And they brought up in this episode, they're like, he didn't say the Holocaust, he didn't say World War II, he didn't say anything like that. He said Russia, you know, losing the Soviet Union. So I think Ukrainians think that that's just what he wants. Like, he just wants to take over everything, dictator. So it's hard to know what the real line is with Putin, because we'll never know. Right. But from their perspective, imagine being promised protection, basically, and then provoking a war, and now being on the blunt end of all of the destruction.
Yeah, they're the collateral.
I totally understand how they would feel betrayed.
Yeah.
You know? And he's kind of like, escalation. Like, everybody's worried about escalation. He's like, Putin's not going to do anything. And, you know, like, it's interesting to see the perspective from them. And the truth is, we don't know much about Russian nuclear warheads, or what they have, right. You know, what the generation is, how capable are they, all of these things. We'll never know, because it's all smoke and mirrors. You're not going to get good information from Putin, right? So he was kind of saying, like, and this is going to make people angry, but he's saying, like, we need troops over here. Like, go ahead and put American troops over here, and then see if the war stops, like, immediately.
Wow.
Which is, like, a pretty crazy thing to say.
Pretty bold, yeah.
Very bold. And he said, peace through strength is only good if you're preparing for war. Like, if Putin says no, then what? Right. Like, if you're going to sue for peace, you better prepare for war, which was an interesting factor, because he was kind of making the thing like, bring them over, say sorry, we have training over here. Like, we have a training exercise with Ukraine, who's our ally, and, you know, whatever. It's like, do you think the war continues? Do you think the missiles keep falling if there's American troops on, you know,
right,
on Ukraine? And I told him too, I'm like, look, man, like, the biggest thing that we hear about around here is risking escalation for nuclear war. That's what we hear. It's in the news all the time. And he's kind of like, it's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
He won't. He's said that a million times and didn't do anything. So,
yeah. Well, what's interesting about that is possibly could be a good thing that troops were not sent over in the last 4 years because, right, if there's American troops over there, one little incident, America always fights back. But America's always had a leader that was willing to. And so it's good that we didn't have to find out if that history of you don't touch America would have been tested with Biden in office. No one was afraid of Biden. Yeah, we know that. Yep. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then, but even to the other stuff.
4 years for Ukraine, though. Golly.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I just can't imagine. And like if you watch his videos on YouTube, I mean, there's like buildings that are half blown up in his town and places he's going, and they put on something like 12 million miles on their vans. They've given out like I think 3 or 6 million meals, something.
Jeez.
So they are on the ground doing the Lord's work, man. Wow. Like they are putting themselves there. They are needed there.
And they were here in New York for
just kind of getting the message out.
Yeah,
as far as I know. Yeah, probably fundraising and
Yeah, cool.
But no, they're doing some amazing stuff with humanitarian aid, and honestly, it just sounds like he said, you know, if you were to ask me what's better, like $1,000 donation or to come to Ukraine, he's like, come to Ukraine. He goes, most people would think I would say the $1,000, but like, come help us be here, like stand with us. Interesting. You got to watch it. Really good story. He talks about not really having problems. Like you don't know problems until school buses are being blown up by grenades, or you know you're fleeing your country because you risk of dying, or you know you're in war. It's a war-torn country. It's just amazing to think about perspective with most of these people that we've had on. Perspective is what it's all about.
Yeah,
we're learning a lot. So, but good. So, anything else? I mean, no. You have to catch up on that one. But these some of these episodes haven't released the reels yet. The clips, we'll get those out as soon as we can. But some of these episodes we might be able to link some of those, and so you can watch with us right alongside of us. The next episode is going to be with the wives, couples series. We'll call that one couples series. That'll be fun.
That's right.
Roger that. And then we've got lots of guests lined up for the near future. The holidays are coming up, so we'll see if we have enough in the hopper to keep them going. But if we don't, we'll take a break for that, and we'll let people know.
Right on.
All right, that's it for us. That's a recap. Let's go.
Peace.
See you later.